Hey, fellow Zambians. Um, Karen, comment huyantanshi bantu. Um, Progress is in the hands of the people. Here with another comment. Just a little bit on Bill 10. Biggest question that I have. I think you may all have wondered. Who writes these bills? Who writes these bills? This is the famous Bill 10. You just wonder how politicians just wake up one morning and say, we have a bill to amend the constitution. No people involved, nobody but themselves. They just wake up one morning, say, we are about to amend the constitution. And the arguments begin. So, who writes these bills? Some of the most accomplished lawyers in our country stand against this bill. So you just wonder, who writes? Do they consult out? Or I just wonder who writes these bills, because this is not right a piece of writing for the faint of heart. It's a very high level piece of writing. So I just wonder who writes this stuff. I don't think the members of parliament write this stuff. Who are the lawyers that are working for the members of parliament? Who proposes these bills? These are pertinent questions. And I just wondered today and wanted to ask that question. I'm sure every one of you has been wondering as to the genesis of Bill 10. You know, it just popped out of nowhere. And there is Bill 10. The famous Bill 10. This is, let me see here if I can. This is the famous Bill 10. This right here. You know, let me see if I can expand this window a little bit so I can see more of it. Okay, just give me a second. See if I can do this without covering myself up too much. All right. Let's see. Okay, where am I? Okay, so this is the infamous Bill 10. This. The question is, who wakes up and comes up with these crazy ideas that we have to change a constitution of the land? Constitutions long established shall not be changed for trivial causes, for trivial or transient causes. That's the nature of the constitution of a land. And it seems like someone just wakes up, we have a proposal to change the constitution. What the heck? This is the infamous Bill 10. It just came out of nowhere. So I just wondered today, who writes this stuff? Some of the top lawyers, you have Mr. Sangwa, one of the top lawyers in Zambia, is against it. Here is an article. I want you to see this article right here. I just wanted you to just want to share what I've been thinking about this thing, how crazy our government can be. Really, it's insane. It's beyond insane, actually. Here's an article here. This was in Lusaka Times. One of the architects, right here, this is what I'm reading here. I'm reading this. One of the architects of Africa's best crafted constitution, in my view, the Kenyan Constitution, Zambian Professor Munandulo, a leading constitutional law expert, is critical of Bill 10 and has described it as too broad, manipulative, and overreaching. Bill 10 is manipulating. This is in the words of Mr. Ndulo. Bill 10 is manipulative and attempts to deceive the people of Zambia and creates a dictatorship under the guise of constitutional reform. Bill 10 is designed to remove parliamentary oversight over the presidency and thereby install a constitutional dictatorship. As if what we have right now is not bad enough. It attempts to manipulate the electoral system to ensure that the ruling party remains in power in perpetuity. That's Professor Ndulo observed. This is insane. What we have right now is bad enough. I'm telling you. In terms of our governance systems, in terms of our power structure in our country, it's bad enough. What we have is bad enough. Let me fix that a little bit. What we have is bad enough because right now, the National Assembly has virtually no power, really, right now. So these attempts to take away whatever power they have, maybe the power, if they have a majority, for example, if they have a huge majority in there, or in terms of opposition, they may succeed in killing a lot of stuff, in killing a lot of bills in parliament, or impeaching the president, which is practically impossible. Even today is pretty much impossible. So this really attempts to entrench the ruling party even further, and to grant more power to the president. And at the same time, increasing the potential of misuse of public resources, mismanagement, and everything you can think of. There is a random case in point. There is 117A, number 38 here, Article 38. The Constitution is amended by the insertion of the following new article immediately after Article 117. 117A. The President may appoint a prescribed number of deputy ministers as the President may consider necessary to assist ministers in the performance of the ministers' functions and to exercise or to perform on behalf of ministers functions of the ministers that the President may authorize in that behalf. So, as a sane thinking Zambian collective, there is an insult upon our intelligence. Right now, the ministers are like a pack of chickens running around with heads cut off. That's what they are. I think that every sane Zambian agrees with me. They don't have anything to do. You'd agree with me that if ministers were doing their jobs instead of only looking out for their own interests, if they were doing their jobs, Zambia would not be where we are today. If they are doing their jobs to advise the president, to say, Mr. President, this is the wrong course of action for the country, let's go this way. You have an astounding approximately 40 ministers and head of 40 ministers in a country. 40 ministers unheard of in any advanced country. But here is the poorest country, one of the poorest countries on the planet, as far as poverty levels go, standard of living of the people, because we have a lot of resources. We are richer than most countries, but we make our citizens poor. And we have 40 ministers right now. Some genius wakes up one day and says, we need Bill 10 and we need to introduce deputy ministers. So now we can have 80 of them. Essentially, 80 of them. We may call someone a deputy minister, but it's something in terms of resource waste and all that stuff. Something we can have 80. He can choose up to 80 of these ministerial positions. Talk about a rotten way of thinking. This is a rotten way of thinking. And this government, the incumbent government, really, this is really taking people for granted. If you can sit back and say this is okay, it's really it's sad. It's really sad. So you wonder who writes this stuff. Because if you consult, you bring a foreigner to write the Constitution, that is a serious breach of even our national security. So I just wonder who writes, where are the lawyers that write this stuff? And really, are those lawyers in their right mind? Are those Zambian lawyers to begin with? We have to ask the question, are these Zambian lawyers? Because I don't understand who writes this. Are these Zambian lawyers? Or where do these lawyers come from? Who write this stuff for a ruling party? So they can get up and say, oh, hey, we have an amendment to the Constitution. We are proposing an amendment. And this is written. Somebody did a lot of work on this. This is not a 1 night or 1 week piece of work. Somebody spent a lot of time writing this. Somebody did their work on this. Not only writing, carefully listening to somebody as to what they wanted and how they wanted. And then these lawyers went to work as to how they could finesse that and materialize it in fine language, insidious language. You know what I mean? This is what this is. It's an insidious materialization of somebody's, somebody's wishes, somebody's ulterior wishes. That's what this is. And they're trying to shove it down the citizens' throats. I'll tell you, this is what this is. This is the infamous Bill 10. Right here. And it appears to make it even easier for the president to remove a judge. A president should never have the power to remove a judge. This makes it very clear on how the president can remove a judge. The president can appoint judges, can remove them, which means our judiciary has no power. They can never pass judgment against the government. And the government in Zambia is the president. Provincial ministers. The constitution is amended by the deletion of subheading immediately after Article 112 and substitution therefore of the following: cabinet, minister, provincial minister, and deputy minister. They added deputy minister. You wonder under the current, ridiculous thing we call the constitution here, we have provincial ministers. You just don't understand why we have these things, why we need these things, why we need the likes of Bomani Lusambo. Why do you need a minister, of a provincial minister? Why do you need a provincial minister? There's no ministry. It has no ministry. A minister heads a ministry. I'll give an example of the United States of America. There are about only 14, approximately 14 cabinet members. I guess they call them secretaries in the United States. They're ministers. 14. They head ministries. They're called departments in the United States. Secretary of the Interior, Secretary of State. These are departments. The Department of State, which will be the same as the Ministry of State. Department of Defense. There's a Secretary of Defense. There's only 14. In a country of 330 million people, there's only about 14. Zambia, 18 million. 18 million people. 750 square kilometers. Look at the size of the United States. It's about 50 times the size of Zambia. You have 40 ministers. And really, we think about progress. We think about getting somewhere. We think about somebody else coming in and assuming the same system, and we think that they are going to do anything. The truth is they are not. Unless all these changes, they are not. Because I grant you, even when we are looking at this, whoever is not opposed to this, there are people waiting in opposition ready to get into government. If this is the Zambian way, I'm telling you, unless we change the way we do things in Zambia as a people, nothing will change. Because I can guarantee you that now, that this is being pushed by the incumbent government right here. And once it shows up the power of the president and it passes. And I need to tell you something. The people are not involved in the constitution making in Zambia. People are not involved. Oh, get a meeting going there and all that stuff. It's just formality. They have already decided that this is going through. They have already decided. And so, whatever they're putting in here to shore up the power of the president and to, manipulate the electoral system in Zambia, configure it in such a way that it might be used to the advantage of the incumbent. That's what it is. If they succeed, here is the real problem that we may not be thinking about as Zambians. How dangerous this is. When they succeed, and I'm saying when, the Constitutional Court has already dismissed any attempted reviews. They have dismissed as invalid. by the I believe that was the the Law Association of Zambia that presented the challenge. They've dismissed it. The Constitutional Court in Zambia cannot pass anything against the president. Of course. So it's a matter of when it passes. Even though the bill has lapsed by the given time frames, it lapsed. Still, when it goes through and it becomes part of the ridiculous thing we call our constitution, it will shore up the powers of the president significantly. Now, listen to this. If next year the rigging, whatever scheme that the ruling party may be cooking up right now to remain in power whatsoever, if it fails, let's say it just fails and they get out of power, somebody else goes in there, somebody who has no desire to change the system, has no desire to change the system, to put a break to this foolishness that we have entertained since independence, or simply handling this so-called constitution like it's a piece of patchwork. You know, it's a piece of patchwork to write and shape whichever way you want because it suits you. Once whoever gets in there has no desire to change the system, has no heart for the Zambian people, has no genuine heart for the Zambian people, to the effect that they want to change all this nonsense in the country, and let Zambians draft their own constitution for once in their lifetimes. If such a person goes in there and they want to look out only for their interests, then this stays. Trust me, they are not going to change it. If they get in there and they find that this actually works to their advantage as well, they are going to stay. That is the nature of the Zambians. That's the nature of we are. We have a big problem as a people. We have a big problem, a mentality problem that is fomented by our own cultural values. It sounds funny, but it is true. These mentalities are fomented by all our own cultural values. We go into government to get rich instead of to serve. So whoever gets in there and he finds this has been done for him already, he's staying. He is going to use it to the fullest extent. Right now, they're saying, oh, wow, between just politicking outside, but you don't see that energy, drive against it. Beware of such people. And once they get in there, they'll use it. It's just they are talking against it because they are outside right now. Once they are in there, now they are protected by this, and they'll be there. That's the danger. And that's the danger of any leader who is in there, because what they're doing there, they don't realize that they are finite. Their term is not infinite. They are finite. Tomorrow they can drop dead. Can drop dead tomorrow. Can drop dead next week. Everyone who has dies. This can pass, and the next day you die. A maniac comes in there, and the country keeps getting worse and worse. Worse and worse. We have a problem, Zambians. We have a problem. So this is the infamous Bulletin here. 81, right here. See, 81. See what it's saying. The the Constitution is amended by the repeal of Article 81 and the substitution therefore the following. 81.1. The term of Parliament shall be 5 years, commencing from the date that the members of Parliament are sworn into office after a general election and ending on the date of the next general election. 2. The National Assembly, when the Republic is at war, by resolution supported by a simple majority vote of the members of Parliament, extend the term of Parliament for more than 12 months at a time. Subject to clauses 4, 5, and 6, the President may dissolve Parliament if the Executive cannot effectively govern the Republic due to the failure of the National Assembly to objectively and reasonably carry out its legislative function. Where the President intends to dissolve Parliament in accordance with Clause 3, the President shall inform the public and refer the matter within 7 days to the Constitutional Court. Why? The Constitutional Court shall hear and determine the matter, refer to it in accordance with Clause 4 with 7 days. All nonsense. All bunch of crap. You go to the Constitutional Court, the Constitutional Court represents the President. You just play games with people. People, how are we going to, when are we going to stop the government from playing games with us? As Zambians, we have an entity that no longer serves our interests. It no longer serves our interests. It is meaningless in Zambia today to have a government. It's almost meaningless to have a government in Zambia. It doesn't serve any of our interests. It serves the interests of foreigners. All this stuff, you keep reading this stuff, it doesn't make, all this is meaningless. It is never actualized. There is no substance in the President. Before he dissolves Parliament, he goes to Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court has no power over him. Then it's just a charade, and money is wasted and wasted and wasted. Nothing is materialized for the people of Zambia. Nothing. Because regardless of what is happening here, all this nonsense that is written here, all this nonsense, you know what it comes down to. You know it comes down to one man. This is it's, we can scrutinize this all we want, or the constitution itself. But as far as substantive governance of the country is concerned, something that, is way above the plight of the ordinary citizens, the plight of one individual citizen whose fate is at the hand of the judiciary in the first place. You hope that they would respect the individual's rights and all that stuff, and treat citizens well without stuff. That's another issue. But I'm talking about when you come to the case of substantive state governance, there is only one entity that's important. It's the presidency. So all this, in my opinion, all this is meaningless. All this is meaningless. We can debate all this all we want. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to make any difference. In my opinion, it doesn't make any difference. I hope you see what I'm getting at here. It doesn't make any difference, because we have the power of the political power of our land is in one man, and this just entrenches it even further. It is difficult enough right now to do anything without a president. It is difficult enough right now to say we are going to get a better hand on our resources without the president, because he's like an emperor. He is exactly like what the governor general was during our colonial times. The governor general had all the powers because the queen needed somebody with a strong hand to put down any kind of insurrection, to stop the locals from acting up. That's what it was. That's why he had all the powers. And he ruled by decree. And essentially, the president of Zambia today can rule by decree. So, when we sit back and, oh, this and this and this and this and this, I'm telling you guys, nothing will change in Zambia until we get rid of this parchment, of this stupid parchment we call constitution, which is an act of parliament. It is not a constitution, it's an act of parliament. And right now they're calling it an act of parliament. It has always been an act of parliament. It started with an act of parliament in England in 1964. Until we get somebody in that state house who is determined, who has a heart for the people of Zambia. We have to get somebody in there who has a heart for them, who is passionate about the people of Zambia. You have to make a good judgment. Somebody who is determined, and we need such a person. Somebody who goes in there and says, okay, I'm now here. Listen up. This is how business is going to be done. First things first, we need a constitution. We need a constitution because we don't have it. And we have to fill up whatever stadium that is in Lusaka with 10,000, 20,000 people from all walks of life in Zambia. Carpenters, all regions, all places in Zambia, all walks of life. Doctors, carpenters, drivers, those who live in Kalingalinga, those who live on Lake Mweru, those who live on Lake Mweru, Wantipa, Isoka, Nakondi, all those, every citizen in Zambia must be represented. They must send a representative to a constituent assembly to express how they want to be governed. And from that, we as Zambians seated in a constituent assembly will come up with a constitution as to how we want to be governed. And to be governed with our consent. It should be a government that governs with the consent of the governed. This, what we have in Zambia, is a government which governs without the consent of the governed. Case in point, we are looking at it right here. You are the governed, but your consent is irrelevant, or your disconsent in this case is irrelevant. So, what kind of government do you have? A dictatorship? Yeah, it is. I don't know what else to call it. What do you call it? So, I just wanted to, make a comment on Bill 10, so that you can all think about it, because it is something. There's something bigger than we know that happens here. We have no power. The citizens of Zambia have no power on what happens to the constitution. They have no power. We have no power. And this just makes it worse. So there comes, when are we going to change this? Let's look carefully. Who do we want to put in State House next year? That's the question I have to ask every day. That's a question that I'm going to ask every time. is who do we put instead? Who is ready to do this for us next year? That's the person we put in there. So, fellow citizens, that's my comment. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. I plan to make some more videos, make some comments. If I find something even more interesting on butane, I'll put it out there. But the whole point of this is that it is meaningless. It is meaningless as long as we, the citizens of Zambia, do not change the system of governance, do not change the way we are governed. All this is meaningless, completely meaningless. It doesn't change anything. We are in Tanshibantu. Progress is in the hands of the people. Fellow citizens, I'll see you in a day or two.